I would like to welcome you to the debate for the 3rd Judicial District Attorney. My name is Sarah Bowman, and I'm the Vice President of the College Republicans here in NMSU. This event is being co-sponsored by the College Democrats and the College Republicans. I would now like to introduce you to our moderators.
My name is Miguel Sosa. I'm the President of the College Democrats here on campus, and we'd like to thank you. The presidential debate's going on right now, but it will be re-aired later. So
And I am Grace Lovejoy. I will be co-mediating with Miguel. I am a senator for the College of Arts and Sciences. And before we get started, I'm just going to read off the debate rules for this evening. Each candidate is allowed a 2-minute introduction. The candidate may prepare an introduction in advance of the debate. A coin toss the evening of the debate determines who gets to introduce themselves first. Ms. Orlando did win the coin toss, so she will be introducing herself first. The first question will be directed at the first person allowed to introduce herself first. Once a question is asked, the candidate has 2 minutes to answer the question. After this, the opposing candidate has 2 minutes to respond and review the opposing argument. At the moderator's discretion, the discussion of a question may be extended by 30 seconds. Upon the conclusion of the debate, each candidate will be allowed a 2-minute closing. The candidate who was last to speak during the debate will be the first candidate to offer a closing. And we do ask that you please hold all applause till the very end of the debate. Now, if you would like to take your time to introduce yourself, right ahead. Right over here. Yes. Okay, one time for this. You have 2 minutes to answer, and then if at the end we will decide if you need an additional 30 seconds.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Amy Orlando, and I'm your current district attorney. And just so that some of you that don't know anything about me, I'd like to give you a little bit of history. I was born and raised in Albuquerque, and then I came down here to New Mexico State where I got my undergraduate degree in social work. So first I'd like to give a shout out to the Aggies, as I am an alumni. And after leaving here with my bachelor's degree, I went to law school. And upon returning from law school, I decided to make Las Cruces my home, where I got hired at the district attorney's office here. That was back in 1993, and I haven't left since. During the course of my career at the district attorney's office, I have handled probably every kind of case that you can imagine, every kind of state case. I've been in front of multiple judges, I've supervised other attorneys, I've handled budget, I've handled personnel issues. I've been involved in some of the more prominent cases that also made law changes. The Baby Brianna case, Katie Savage case, Carly Martinez case, and Ashley Wax case. Ashley Wax was a young lady that was 15 years old when she was killed by her 16-year-old boyfriend in front of her parents. In 2011, I was appointed to be the district attorney by Governor Martinez. And under my time as district attorney, we have had 80 employees, 25 attorneys, a $5.2 million budget that I have balanced, and we have a 97% conviction rate from the office. And I will continue to make sure that our office runs smoothly, that we have experienced attorneys that's on my team. They will remain there. They're known entities. They're people that have been with us for long periods of time. I ask that you listen today, and I think what you're going to hear is you're going to hear about my experience as being a district attorney and as being a prosecutor for 19 years. Thank you for coming out.
Good evening, Ms. Orlando. Hello. Ms. Orlando, Aggies, fellow students, faculty, judges. My name is Mark D'Antonio, and with your support, I'm going to be your next district attorney. Now, first of all, I want to thank the Democrat and the Republicans on campus for making this a great event and to have this many people show up during the principal day is amazing. Thank you very much. In these types of races, folks, the typical mantra is, oh, I'm tough on crime. That's what you're going to hear. However, I want to show you and demonstrate today that it's better to be smart on crime than tough on crime. And to do that, you need more than just prosecutorial experience. That's not enough. I have unique perspective to diverse backgrounds. Let me tell you about my background. In the very beginning, I was in the Air Force, and I served as a staff sergeant, and I taught military justice to our troops. That's where I learned commitment and teamwork, which is so vital to the DA's office. After that, I was an FBI agent. And I'm the guy who carried the gun and knocked down the doors. I know what danger is, and I know how volatile law enforcement is. Matter of fact, a good friend of mine, a female individual that I went to the FBI Academy with, a good friend, was killed in the line of duty 2 years after he graduated. So it's a dangerous world out there, and we need someone to protect you. As an FBI agent, I investigated personally all types of cases, from public corruption to counterintelligence. And I learned that you need to have a team of professionals, both prosecution and law enforcement, and who knows both sides of the coin to do an effective job. While I was an advisor to the Attorney General of the United States in Washington, D.C., I implemented policies affecting border security, national security, and public safety. Is that my time?
That's your time.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, Ms. Orlando, the first question goes to you. While we heard about you as an individual in your introduction, what specific experiences, both professional and personal, make you the most qualified to serve as DA?
Thank you. Well, this is what I've lived for, is to do this job. Since I was little, this is what my career choice was and what my path was and what I wanted to do. And I've achieved being here. The experience that I have is 19 years working with people. I have met people that have been raped. I met them on the day after they've been brutally beaten up. I've gone through trials with them. I've sat with families holding their hand when they have lost a loved one. I have been through trial from the beginning, when the case first started, it was being investigated, all the way to the end when we're waiting for a verdict to come out and holding those people's hands. I have tried every single case that you can imagine. But on top of my trial experience, I also have supervisory skills. As I said, we have a $5.2 million budget that we have to balance by law. And I have 80 employees that I supervise. I've also I've argued in front of the state Supreme Court this last year, and I won. And that's an odd thing for a trial prosecutor to be able to say. I also have gone to the legislature to argue on behalf of victims for tougher laws, for better laws, to clear up the loopholes in the laws, and also to argue for our budget. When I took over the office in 2011, we were on voluntary furloughs, and I made sure to get all of our employees off of those voluntary furloughs. So I think if you look at the experience, my trial work, my experience as a supervisor, you will find that I'm more than qualified to do this job. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, like in a lot of cases and debates, it's what is not said that is more important than what's being said. The DA has two main functions. On one side of the function, on the scales of justice, is to make sure that the guilty are prosecuted and punished. And that's all we heard from my opponent today. As equally important is the other side of the scale, which says a DA has the absolute obligation and duty to protect the innocent at all costs. That never an innocent person shall be found guilty of a crime. Now, we've heard a lot of issues about how tough it is and about hand-holding witnesses. We did not hear one thing, not one issue about protecting the innocent or falsely accused of crimes, and that's equally important. Thank you.
Would you like a rebuttal? Yes.
simply say, look at my record for 19 years. I've never been accused of prosecuting somebody wrongfully. I've never had a case overturned because of evidence that came forward. As a DA, you screen those cases and you do justice before they ever get to trial. By having a 97% conviction rate, as the Sun News endorsed me, they even said that we are clearly doing our job because with a 97% conviction rate, we are screening out the cases that are not ready for trial or not enough evidence, and that we are convicting the people we need to. Thank you.
Let's hold your applause to the very end, just for time's sake, please. Thank you. This is Orlando. Over the past decade, New Mexico has taken a considerable amount of action to battle drunk driving. While conviction rates for drunk driving have increased and more offenders have served jail time, is jail the best place for repeat offenders? Is this an effective method?
Thank you. I think that for first-time DWI offenders, there is rehabilitation that needs to happen. If somebody is caught driving while intoxicated and it's their first offense and it's low level of alcohol in their system, they're going to get the chance to have rehabilitation, have treatment. After that first time, I do believe that punishment is appropriate. When you get behind the wheel and you're driving drunk and you have a 3,003-ton car, that is a dangerous weapon. And unfortunately, the statistics will show you that the people that die are not the people that are drunk driving. It is the innocent victims that get hurt. So I do believe in rehabilitation in certain cases, especially your first time. But after that, I do believe that there needs to be punishment, some jail time, some incarceration. Clearly after your third and subsequent prison time is appropriate.
Thank you.
The real issue when it comes to drunk driving, besides the dangerous element, which you all agree, nobody wants to have drunk driving on the road. My son and my mother live in this community. It's the last thing I want. However, what's happening in the DA's office today is every case is treated exactly the same. There's no distinction to a man who is lying in a car, drunk with keys in his pocket, to someone who's driving on the road at 100 miles an hour at a .08. Each case, and it's important, is treated individually and not cookie cutter printout. Now, I will tell you this, that you'll view DUI cases differently if your mother or father is a victim or your mother and father is the accused. I think, and I believe as a DA, I will make sure that each case is individually monitored, individually looked at, the facts of that case against the law for every case, every person. Black, white, Hispanic, Democrat, Republican, treat the same.
Okay, Mr. D'Antonio, this question for you. What three types of crimes would you prioritize as Mr.
First of all, I think any crime that is hurtful to another individual, in other words, violent crime would be my number one agenda, as it should be for all DAs across the United States. Second, I think that public corruption needs to be nipped in the bud, because without faith in government and our process of law, we're in trouble. The third, I think crimes against the elderly, which have been not fully addressed by this administration, would be my third priority. Elderly people have lost millions of dollars and lost their life savings because the DA's office currently doesn't have facilities or the manpower or the expertise to handle such crimes. Now, violent crimes need to be handled proactively, not reactively. Now, of course, if somebody commits a violent crime, the police have to go out and make arrests. However, the DA, as the number one law enforcement officer in the county, is directly responsible for setting guidelines, strategies, and policies to make sure as best he or she can prevent crime before it happens. For instance, gang violence. There are ways and methods we can stop gang violence before it happens. Now, folks, I'm not unrealistic. I know you can't stop all gang violence. But instead of prosecuting our young children, let's get together with social workers, police officers, parents, schools, and stop to prevent gang violence before it happens. We can read the signs, the gangsters on the wall. We can do undercover investigation. We can have community policing. That's going to be my big difference from the current administration. I believe proactive is much better than reactive.
In response to my opponent's answer, I will tell you that because he does federal law and not state law, and he's unfamiliar with what we do at the district attorney's office, we have those programs in place. What he doesn't know is that we currently have attorneys that are supervised, that are trained specifically for elderly abuse cases. We have a grant that is with the county, and we have a victim advocate that goes out and trains the elderly on how to make sure that they're protected. We also have this on the Park case, and of course that was proactive. Responding to 2 senators and a representative, I assembled a task force, sent them down to investigate, and we have what is developed into 15 people charged approximately, with an investigation still ongoing. So I think that what he has announced would be important is what we are doing currently. Now let me answer the question as far as what cases I would make as priority or I think are affecting our communities right now. Crimes against victims, women and children. We see a lot of domestic violence and we see a lot of child abuse. Our child abuse cases are cases where the parents are using drugs and the children are testing positive. That is on the uprise, and it's huge and it's scary because we don't know how those children are going to act or how it's going to affect them long term. Second of all, economic crimes. When we are in an economic situation that we are in today, we see more and more burglaries, auto thefts, people stealing from each other because why? They need to make ends meet, or because they're a criminal enterprise and that's what happens. And finally, I think that DWIs need to be stopped, and we need to think of preventative ways to stop people from even thinking of drinking and getting behind the wheel. Thank you.
Mr. D'Antonio, would you like a rebuttal?
Yes, please. Ladies and students, I want you to do me a favor. Politicians sometimes always tell the truth. I've talked to people out there, and these policies are not being implemented in our society. That's all we have a problem. And let me talk about some of the Park case. I'm the only person sitting up here that's ever investigated a public corruption case as a law enforcement officer. And I can tell you, the proper way to do it is not to undermine the people's confidence in their own government. The way you do it is you do a quiet investigation, find out the key figures, and make arrests all at one time. You do not do a piecemeal arrest, which frightens the community and hurts the government in the long run. That's the wrong way to do things. That's how you get headlines, not quickly convict public corruption cases.
Mr. D'Antonio,
Yes, ma'am.
Doña Ana County shares the border with Mexico and is at the epicenter of illegal immigration. Despite the fact that the federal government takes the lead on this issue, does New Mexico and the Doña Ana County's DA office need to take any specific actions to address this matter?
Ma'am, the answer is, in fact, yes. As an FBI agent, I worked border security issues. While I was working with the DOJ and the Department of Justice under Janet Reno, I implemented policies directly related to border security. No one, I would say, in this room has more experience in prosecuting and investigating border crimes and border crimes. My 10 years in the U.S. Attorney's Office, right here in Las Cruces, I've handled thousands of cases dealing with immigration and border security. Folks, what we have to remember is the chief job of the DA is to keep our community safe. It's a matter of time before the violence we see in the waters is going to start spilling over to our borders. What plan do we have in place to protect that? Well, the answer is no plan. We need someone in the DA's office who knows what the problem is and has the will to establish a strategy and a plan to fight that problem when it comes. I have such experience and I have such a plan. And I'll implement that plan way before the problem starts. That's, again, what you call proactive law enforcement. And I'm the only person in this room who knows how to do it. Thank you.
My opponent may be the only person in this room that knows how to do that because he's worked in the federal system. Again, he has not ever worked in the state system, which is what the district attorney's office works in. The federal system, while he just took, what I understand maybe was credit for implementing our immigration rules through the federal system, I will tell you that's where it's broken. You go to the federal system who has jurisdiction over immigration, and they will tell you, the U.S. Attorney's Office and the federal system will tell you that if you are smuggling in illegal aliens, if you have 5 or less, you're okay, because that's their threshold. So if that's his implication, or if he was involved in that rule, I think that's just ridiculous. Also, they won't come out for over, unless the marijuana that is stopped at a border is over 150 pounds. So again, how is that any kind of a good theory? What we have is we deal with illegal immigrations on a daily basis with victims, not defendants.
Would you like an additional 30 seconds?
Please. As I was saying, as a district attorney, what happens and where I think that the biggest problem with our illegal aliens is in victims. They are scared to report. They don't know that there's an exception to the law that allows them, if they claim to be victims, that they can get help. People will hold them down and threaten them and tell them that if they report, they will be deported. So I think that what we need to do is get out there and make sure that we work with our police officers, we train them, we don't scare the victims, and we let them know that they have rights. Just because they're here possibly illegally, they don't get to be abused or taken advantage of.
On that note, Mr. Orlando, a question to you. What is the working relationship between PA and like agencies at various levels, such as state and federal?
Our office has a very good working relationship with the community agencies, such as Children, Youth, and Families. We have monthly meetings with them. I have received all endorsements of law enforcement, Las Cruces Police Officers Association, Fraternal Order of Police, the Doña Ana County Sheriff's Association, the firefighters, and then I also just yesterday received the Sun News endorsement. So we have a hands-on working relationship. I have gone out in the 19 years and trained all levels of law enforcement, from federal to state to marshals, all over the state. Trained them on sex abuse cases, homicide, child abuse cases, child protocol cases, SANE exams, anything that you can imagine. We have a very close and good working relationship with all of the agencies that deal with criminal law.
Ladies and gentlemen, there's some big, bold statements being made today, and some fallacies being portrayed in this group. I am fully capable and qualified and have done trials in the state level and in the county. Just like my opponent has. In fact, we had a case together not too long ago. But the difference is, I can also step in the federal court and do a federal case. My opponent cannot. I can also appear before the 10th Circuit here in Doña County and state and compare a case and argue a case. I can also appear before the Supreme Court of the United States. So my opponent makes these claims that I'm not qualified to somehow be the DA because I'm not a former DA. It's ridiculous. I have more skills, more experience than she'll ever think of having. And I'm offended by the fact that she believes that I'm not qualified to be the DA. Just because Mr. Orlando was in the office for 19 years and I've done the same thing over and over again. And I have traveled the world in the United States seeking different opportunities and expanding my horizons. That's not a minus, that's a plus. You need real leadership. And when I was talking about implementing border policy, that was at a national level, not at a local level. And Mr. Orlando's attempt to blame me for the current federal border crimes is slightly disingenuous and resentful.
Mrs. Orlando, would you like a rebuttal? Mr. D'Antonio, the ability to carry and conceal firearms and to purchase various types of firearms, including those of a very dangerous nature, are the subject of heated discussion. Does New Mexico need gun reform, and if so, what actions need to be taken and why?
Ladies and gentlemen, you're talking to a ex-military man and an ex-FBI agent who has handled all sorts of dangerous guns basically for my whole life, since I was 18. I currently own an assault rifle and automatic handguns. And I believe that I'm qualified and shown, trained, and have the experience to use them properly and wisely and not pose any danger to anybody in this community. Now, all people are not similarly situated. There are some dangerous people in our community who should not have guns. I think nobody would disagree with that. But to broadly blanket people and saying, and have the government step in and say, you can't have a gun or a weapon because maybe you don't know how to use it, is overpractic and should be allowed. I would submit that New Mexico should maintain their laws, and if the laws were to be increased, it only should be that to make sure that qualified and competent people carry firearms. But I'll never acquiesce to the idea that Americans should lose their right to bear arms.
While I appreciate my opponent's military duty, my father was in the Navy and also retired from the Air Force, and so I traveled around as a military individual. I also have my carry and conceal license, and I've also renewed that carry and conceal license. So I have been responsible about carrying a gun for protection, as I think all citizens should. Being the prosecutor and the DA for 19 years, I've also charged people with gun crimes. People that use them recklessly, harm people, there's charges for that. There's also charges that we have called firearm enhancement. So if you commit a crime and you use a firearm, we add in additional time for firearm enhancement. So I think as a district attorney, it is not our position to legislate or make changes to the constitutional right to bear arms. We have to be responsible and follow through on the laws that are on the books and make sure that we prosecute those people that are using guns unlawfully and illegally.
Ms. Orlando, most cases handled by the DA's office are settled by plea bargaining process. Given that the court systems are under serious financial constraints, are there any types of cases not appropriately handled by this process?
It would not be appropriate for plea offers.
Yes.
Well, each case is based on individual. We look at each case individually. As a prosecutor, you follow the evidence. So the case is charged, you follow the evidence. As it gets to trial, you follow the evidence. As a defense attorney gets involved, you follow the evidence. And of course, plea negotiations come involved at all times. There are certain cases that will not be plead down. If the victim is on board in domestic violence cases and they don't want a plea to happen, we will go to trial. In child sex abuse cases, if the victim is able to testify or we're able to get out that statement, there will not be plea offers. I had a young lady one time who was being molested by her natural father. She looked me in the eyes and said, I don't care what happens, I want to go to trial. And I'm going to go to trial and I'm going to testify against him. I don't want any offers. She took the stand and he was convicted and he was sent away for over 100 years. That was her choice that she made with her mother. So there are cases that are not inappropriate for being plead away or for plea offers even being made.
Plea offers are a necessary element of any prosecution. Anybody that tells you that's being soft on crime doesn't know what the result would be if we didn't have plea agreements. Our courts would be overcrowded and we couldn't possibly go to trial without some tool. However, plea agreements need to be fair to all parties. What I mean by that, ladies and gentlemen, is there are situations where if you're rich enough, famous enough, politically connected enough, you get a really good plea deal, and that is wrong. If you are poor and all you can afford is a public defender, 10-year plea agreements aren't so good. It's that kind of injustice where money and political power trump everything else has to end. Now, also what has to end is stacking charges at the DA's office to induce pleas. What do I mean by that? Let's say an individual is charged with breaking and entry or burglary. Well, if that doesn't carry enough time and want to reduce the plea, the DA's office will stack the charges. In other words, invent or bring up other related charges to force an individual to plea. In other words, saying, hey, listen, you can do 2 months or you can do 25 years if you go to trial. Your choice. And without the best lawyers in town, you get away with it. So, plea agreements, necessary part of what has to be done fairly. The same plea agreement to A, we do in the same situation as we give it to B. And that's what's not happening.
That being said, Mr. D'Antonio, for individuals who cannot afford legal representation, they're provided with the right to a state-funded attorney. Do you believe that there is currently a lack of support and resources in the public defender's office? If so, what additional resources do you feel are needed?
Once again, that is an emphatic, no doubt about it, yes. The current situation we have in the public defender's office is almost akin to unconstitutional. The public defenders are way overburdened and way overworked. They are outnumbered by the DA's office, outtrained and outpaid. And why that is the case, I have no idea. Ladies and gentlemen, there's a proposition coming up for election. And I believe it's number 5. And it will take the public defender's office out of the control of the governor's office. Now, I don't care who the governor is, but that needs to be passed. Because we need an independent body to fully support our public defender's office. Now, you may say, hey, Mark, why are you so big on the public defender's office? They're your enemy. The key is, folks, is they're not my enemy. They're one part of the tri-system that is justice. Prosecution, defense, and the judges. Without any one element, the system fails. I want to face good public defenders. I'm confident I can win if the facts of law are in my favor. If the facts of law aren't in my favor, I shouldn't win. That's the way the system works. Let there be no mistake about it. We need a strong public defender. Remember, what's my job when I'm elected? My job is twofold. One, make sure the guilty are properly punished and found guilty if they're found guilty. Equally important, I'm repeating myself, it's not important. I'm responsible for making sure no innocent person ever gets falsely convicted.
I think the question was, does the public defender's office need more resources? Is that correct? Oh, sorry. I believe that at any time that both sides have to be equal and do their job. Under the previous governor, the public defender's office was inadequately funded. In fact, our district attorney's office gave them resources. We gave them computers so they could match up to our disclosure. We gave them use of items and things for their office that would help them be better at their job. I believe now currently they are up and running at almost full capacity. I think at some point that some of the public defenders might be offended by how bad my opponent is claiming that they are. I think if you also run their case numbers, you'll find that their case numbers are much less than actually what we carry as the prosecutors. And it's our burden, and we carry the whole burden, to prove somebody guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. I'd like to address one point that my opponent keeps bringing up, is that the job of the district attorney is to do justice. And that is correct. And we do justice every day by screening cases and following the evidence. But at the time of trial, if both the prosecutor and the defense attorney were on the same side for the defendant, nobody would win cases. It is our job to be an advocate for the community and an advocate and voice for victims. It is the judge's job to oversee and make rulings, and it is the defense attorney, like Mr. D'Antonio, to make sure that the criminals are protected. Thank you.
Thank you. Would you like your vote?
Ladies and gentlemen, that is an inaccurate assessment of the law. And if you don't believe me, I want you to go after this meeting and go to any legal document. The government has an absolute duty during trial to present exculpatory information to the defense. What does exculpatory information mean? It means information that would tend to prove the defendant not guilty. I totally and completely disagree with my opponent's statements in that regard. The prosecutor always, during trial after trial, to protect both the victim and the accused.
Okay, that is a good segue to our next question, which was, does the district attorney have any role in preventing innocent people from going to jail?
Yes, the district attorney does. That's part of the job of why we screen our cases and we charge cases. Again, as cases are investigated by police officers, they're brought to our office, we review them for the sufficiency of evidence, and then we follow that evidence. If there's a problem with a search warrant, if there's problems with proving our case beyond a reasonable doubt, if our victim is not going to be able to stand up through trial or has recanted, then we don't follow that case through. So at that point is when we make our decisions and follow the evidence. Believe me, we have more than enough cases. With 25 attorneys at any given time carrying over 80 cases, we don't have to look for cases to prosecute. We have enough. My opponent has only done 36 state cases in his career. State cases. We have attorneys that carry double that on any given day. So I find it disingenuous to say that we're going to go out and try and make up cases. We stay busy. Again, with a 97% conviction rate, we are doing justice. And in 19 years, I have never had a case overturned because some exculpatory evidence was withheld, or they were discovered to be innocent sometime later.
What role does the district attorney play in preventing innocent people from going to jail?
Well, I think everybody in the room could answer that for me as well as I could. It's been my contention or my position since this debate started that I believe that is half of the percent of what the prosecutor has to do. I can't help but think of my opponent's statement. The 98% conviction rate is just not true. Let me tell you why. Or 97 or 96. Here's why. If a case is brought to the DA's office and there are 6 felonies, 5 first degrees and 1 fourth degree, and through a long process, all serious felony charges are dismissed, otherwise not pursued, and the one count that's left remains is convicted. That's counted as a victory. That's going back to what I'm saying. Ignore the smoke and mirrors. Pull back the curtain. I charge, or ask everybody in this room, to go to the district courthouse here in Diana County, and you'll find men there who work as security guards. They sit in the courtrooms every day, and they work there 5 days a week, and they see every defense lawyer, every prosecutor. They know what goes on behind the scenes, and they have no loyalty. And I challenge you, please, because like I said, remember, politicians sometimes don't tell the truth. Please talk to those folks and say, hey, what really goes on here? What's really going on behind those folks that are on trial? And see what answer you give. Thank you.
Just want rebuttal?
Yes. I'd just like to say that while I love the bailiffs and the people that guard the courtroom, and they're great people, they don't keep statistics. And I've told my opponent this before. You can check my statistics. I invite everyone to come. We have the statistics. They've been checked by fact check before, and I never would claim a victory if we won on a lesser misdemeanor charge, is what my opponent keeps claiming. So please do. Please come. We will show you the numbers. We will show you how we get to them, and ask us. I have them. Thank you.
Thank you. Now it's time for the questions that you both have prepared. So 2 of the questions that you prepared, you will be able to ask your opponent, and you'll have the same allotted time.
Thank you, ma'am. My first question to Mr. Orlando is, what is your policy on drug rehabilitation and counseling in lieu of incarceration?
Could you repeat one more time? I'm sorry.
Yes, sir. What is your policy on drug rehabilitation and counseling in lieu of incarceration?
Thank you. We support, as a district attorney's office, we support anyone that is a first-time offender or is convicted of lower amounts of drugs or has a drug problem, of getting treatment. We have, our attorneys attend drug court, we support drug court, and we're a vital member of the drug court program that's run out of district court. There are all kinds of programs that are offered for defendants that have those drug issues. And of course, if they fit those criteria, then I think that if they're never going to come back through the system again, that's a good thing. We also have a program called Pre-Prosecution Diversion Program, which allows for a first-time offender who has a low level of drugs, not trafficking, but drug possession, to enter into that program. They are monitored by probation officers at the district attorney's office, and once, if they complete that, then they have a clean record. That record does not follow them, so they get a clean shot of that. So I'm fully in support of drug rehabilitation and drug programs for people that are appropriate for those programs. Thank you.
Thank you, and now is your time to ask your question.
Mr. D'Antonio, I would like to know how many murder trial cases you've actually taken to jury trial.
About probably a year or 2 before I left the U.S. Attorney's Office, I worked on a very serious case dealing with the area of brotherhood. This case is what we refer to as a RICO case, which is organized crime, which is a very complex federal regulation dealing with all sorts of conspiracies within violent crime. The indictment alone, I think, was 9 or 10 people. And the foundation of that indictment was a string of murders and jail of violence done by the area brotherhood in and around New Mexico. And we're working that very hard now. Before that case came to conclusion, I had left, retired from the U.S. Attorney's Office, and was carried on by my colleagues at the U.S. Attorney's Office. Now, folks, the question that was asked was meant to imply that I don't have experience handling cases in the DA's office. Let me tell you what the role of the DA is. I have more hardcore, high-level litigation experience than my opponent, and that's a fact. And the fact, as I mentioned, that I can go into state court and have and try cases, but she can't go into federal court and try cases because, frankly, she's not qualified. It's a higher level of law enforcement and prosecution. Everybody knows it. Maybe my opponent won't admit it, but that's the fact. And I don't mean to sound cocky, or I don't mean to sound higher mighty. But that is why DAs go to the federal government and not the other way around. So any claim that I'm not qualified by my law enforcement experience, by my prosecutor's experience, is just disingenuous.
Would you like to provide?
And this is state the district attorney's office operates in state district court. And I believe that my opponent, if you asked him, would admit that the rules of evidence are different, the rules of procedure are different, the sentencing guidelines are different. Everything that is operated in state court is completely different from federal court. In fact, the case that he referenced earlier that he and I worked on together, he came into court and asked me, can you help me with this because I don't understand state law. I am not being disrespectful for him. He has federal experience. He does not have the state experience necessary for the district attorney's position.
Thank you. And now is your time to ask your second question.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Orlando, what are you doing about the high incidence of sexual assault on NMSU campus?
Well, first, I'd like to know where you get your statistic that there's a high incident of sexual assault on NMSU campus. I believe that the NMSU Police Department is extremely vigorous in their prosecution, in their investigation, and in patrolling, and in following through. In fact, there are police officers that have retired from other departments and have a lot of experience. However, having said that, I have came to New Mexico State and taught in criminal justice classes, in women's education classes, in classes that are there to prevent sexual assault. During the month that recognizes sexual assault, I have come and taught and been available and answered questions and guest speaker. So I believe that education is the component that we have to have as a prosecutor. Moreover, I have prosecuted, I believe, 5 rapists that came out of New Mexico State. Now, it doesn't mean they happened on New Mexico State, but they were student victims that were raped, whether it was date rape or whatever. We prosecuted them, followed through, they were convicted. So I think that with the education, making sure people know how to get help and where to report, as well as following through with prosecutions when somebody does report, that's how we're going to help stop them.
To answer my opponent's question, that fact came from the women I personally interviewed here in the last few weeks. Because I think it's important to go to the students themselves and ask them what's wrong. And that's not what's being done here. Listen, we have a problem on campus. It's not being addressed. My opponent told a colleague she doesn't have to come to this campus because he believes it's too liberal. It doesn't fit with our politics. So that's a fact.
That is complete untruth. This is my alum. This is where I graduated from. My opponent. So I would come here. I challenge you. You will find teachers. I was just here last week as a judge for the door decorations for the Tough Enough to Wear Pink. I would never say that. I love this place. I am an Aggie through and through, and so. To say that I would not come here because the school is too liberal. This is where I got my bachelor's degree in social work, and I'm proud of it, and it's on my wall. Mr. D'Antonio, I'd ask you what is the current sexual assault protocol for Doñana County, and how would you improve it?
My answer to that is that specific knowledge of internal policies, since I'm blocked from any information from the DA's office. In other words, folks, when I need information from the DA's office, I have to file requests informally in writing. So you have an individual blocking the information, yet then turns around the public and asks me a question. How about that? How about the DA? How would you like to be prosecuted by somebody who hides the ball and asks you the question? I think a total and complete change is needed in the DA from bottoms up. I think we need to take the politics out of the DA and that includes their claim that they are assault advocates and righteous advocates for crimes against women and violent crimes. It's part of this kind of bullying, covering up process that first made me run for the DA's office. I was outraged as a defense attorney to find out how poorly the defense attorneys were treated, and how information was hidden, and things weren't just and fairly. Politics overrides the DA's office with an overwhelming sense. And once again, folks, don't believe me. Don't believe Mr. Orlando. Do your own research. Talk to the people on the ground. I urge you to do that. Not employees of the DA's office, not people who are friendly to me, but the people who appear in court every day, the people who deal with the DA's office, the former employees of the DA's office, and they'll tell you the truth.
Well, the sexual assault protocol for Doña County is not a program that comes out of the district attorney's office, so it's impossible for me to hide that law. It comes out of FYI, and that's where it was initiated. I was here when it started 19 years ago and was on that community. We have a multi-task force, so he could go to any state agency and find out what that protocol is. This last year, I helped to write it to involve child abuse cases as well as sexual assault cases. So that is not something that I'm in control of, that he'd have to write a response and ask for. He could have found out.
Mr. D'Antonio, your closing argument.
Ladies and gentlemen, I want you to think about what you heard here today. And I want you to consider this. If your son, your daughter, your mother, your father was falsely accused of a crime, and let's make it a heinous crime. Let's make it pedophilia. Let's make it crimes against a child, where you were convicted in a court of public opinion way before that prosecution ever started. Who would you want prosecuting your case? Me or Mr. Land? It comes down not to just experience, which I have a bucket load. It comes down to a matter of philosophy. Is there a balance in our system? Is it righteous and just to protect the innocent as well as prosecute the guilty? That's your choice. That's the decision you have to make. Thank you.
I will not apologize for being tough on murderers, child abusers, child molesters, people that abuse our elderly, and people that commit homicides and rapes. I stand on my record, and I stand on the fact that I have always been and always will be a voice for victims, for people that cannot come to the court and talk for themselves, for people that need somebody to be a zealous advocate on their behalf. I am a career prosecutor. I have chosen that path, and I have done it for 19 years. I am steadfast, I bring experience, and I bring knowledge to the table. My opponent has done 36 cases in state district court. I have been involved in over thousands of cases screening and well over 150 to 200 trials in criminal state court. I'd like you to ask the same question that my opponent asked. If you were a victim of a crime, or a family member was murdered, or a friend was raped on this campus, who would you want to be your prosecutor? And if it's me, because I will be zealous, and I am known to be zealous, then I'm your district attorney, and I would ask for your vote. Thank you.
That, I was going to say, let's give both of our candidates a round of applause. That concludes our debate. I would like to thank you all for coming to the presidential debate. Catch it on YouTube. We'd like to thank the College of Health and Social Services for the No, just thank you all.
Thank you.
If you haven't registered to vote yet, we have tables in the back where you can do so. And also,